Captain Han Tae-won's head throbbed as he slowly opened his eyes. The last thing he remembered was the flash of strange lights in the night sky during his reconnaissance mission on planet LV-327. Now he found himself in a strange room with metallic walls that hummed with unknown energy. "Where am I?" he muttered, trying to sit up. His military uniform was dirty and torn, but he was relieved to discover that whoever had taken him hadn't found the combat knife hidden in a secret compartment of his boot. Standard procedure for Special Forces operatives of the Earth Defense Coalition. The room was sparse, just a metal bench that served as a bed and a small sink in the corner. A large transparent panel on one wall allowed light to filter in. Tae-won approached it cautiously, his training kicking in as he surveyed his surroundings for potential threats or escape routes. What he saw through the panel made his blood run cold. In a massive hangar-like space, tall, insect-like creatures moved with purpose. They stood nearly 8 feet tall with segmented bodies and multiple limbs that moved with unsettling precision. Their exoskeletons gleamed under harsh lighting as they worked around various containment units. "They're not alone," Tae-won whispered to himself as he spotted what was inside those units. Massive reptilian creatures thrashed against their restraints, creatures that looked disturbingly like the dragons from Earth mythology, but with biological features that suggested they were real, living animals. Their scales reflected light in iridescent patterns, and occasional bursts of what appeared to be superheated gas escaped from glands near their throats. The door to his cell slid open suddenly. Tae-won dropped into a defensive stance, ready to fight despite being outnumbered, and in unknown territory. 2 of the insectoid beings entered, flanking a third who appeared different from the others, perhaps a leader. This one wore what looked like ceremonial armor plates attached to its exoskeleton and carried a staff-like device. "The human is awake," came a voice that seemed to originate from nowhere and everywhere at once. Some kind of translation technology. "Who are you? Why have you brought me here?" Tae-won demanded, keeping his voice steady despite the fear crawling up his spine. The lead alien tilted its head in what might have been curiosity. Its compound eyes reflected Tae-won's image back at him in fragmented pieces. "We are the Null," the voice translated. "You are part of our research now. Your species is new to us. Interesting. We study all potential threats to our expansion." Tae-won's military training kept his expression neutral, but his mind raced. And those creatures? The ones that look like dragons? The alien made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. "Bioweapons. The most perfect predators we have engineered. They hunt, they kill, they adapt. We improve them constantly." The Guri lead Null stepped closer, its mandibles moving in patterns that the translation device interpreted. "You will help us test their latest improvements. We must know if they can overcome human survival instincts." "I'm not volunteering for any tests," Tae-won said firmly, eyes darting around the room for anything he could use as a weapon besides his hidden knife, which he wanted to keep secret. The Null leader made another series of clicks. "Volunteering is not required. Preparation begins now." A panel in the ceiling opened, and a fine mist descended into the room. Tae-won held his breath and tried to make a break for the door, but his legs felt suddenly heavy. "The biosystem is being prepared," one of the other aliens said. "The human will be introduced once the dragons have established territory." As Tae-won's consciousness began to fade, he caught sight of a screen on the wall outside his cell. It showed a massive enclosed ecosystem, a forest with mountains in the distance and a lake at its center. It was beautiful in an artificial way, clearly designed to mimic Earth environments, but with subtle differences in the vegetation and geological features. Chief Researcher Do Hyun predicts the human will survive less than 1 planetary rotation, the translator conveyed as Tae-won's vision blurred. His last thought before darkness took him was of the knife in his boot. They hadn't found it during his capture. It wasn't much against creatures engineered to be perfect predators, but it was something, and sometimes something was all a soldier needed. As his eyes closed, the Null gathered around him, preparing to transport him to what they called their compatibility arena, never suspecting that they had captured perhaps the most dangerous predator of all. Tae-won awoke to the sound of rustling leaves and a gentle breeze across his face. For a moment he thought he might be back on Earth, maybe having fallen asleep during a training exercise. But the air smelled wrong, similar to Earth's forests, but with unfamiliar undertones, like cinnamon mixed with metal. He sat up slowly, his soldier's instincts kicking in before he fully remembered where he was. The Newell, the capture, the dragons. Stay calm. Assess your situation, he whispered to himself, the mantra from his Special Forces training. He was lying on soft grass in a small clearing surrounded by trees that looked almost like Earth's pines, but with blue-tinted needles. The sky above was a pale yellow color, clearly artificial, part of the massive biodome he'd glimpsed before being sedated. In the distance, he could see mountains rising up sharply, and to his right, sunlight glinted off what appeared to be a lake. Tae-Won checked himself over. His uniform was intact and his hidden knife was still secure in his boot. Beyond that, he had nothing. No comm device, no rations, no weapons. Not exactly a fair fight, he muttered, rising to his feet. A low rumble from somewhere nearby sent birds, or what passed for birds in this place, scattering from the trees. Tae-Won froze, listening intently. The sound came again, deeper this time, followed by the unmistakable crack of breaking wood. He moved quickly to the nearest large tree and scaled it with practiced ease, settling on a sturdy branch about 20 feet up. From his vantage point, he could see movement in the forest about 100 yards away. Something large was moving through the trees. Then he saw it, and his breath caught in his throat. The creature was massive, easily the size of a small bus, with a muscular body covered in scales that shifted color slightly as it moved, blending with its surroundings. Its head was wedge-shaped, adorned with bony plates and curving horns. As it moved into a patch of sunlight, its scales shimmered with an iridescent blue-green glow. "So you're what they call dragons," Tae-Won whispered. The creature paused, its head swinging back and forth, and for a terrifying moment, Tae-Won thought it had heard him. Then it continued on, moving with surprising grace for its size, following what appeared to be a game trail. Once it was gone, Tae-Won descended from the tree and moved in the opposite direction. He needed to find water, shelter, and understand this environment better if he was going to survive. As he walked, hidden speakers crackled to life around him. "Subject has been successfully introduced to the arena," came the translated voice of what Tae-Won assumed was one of the Newell researchers. "Primary life signs stable. Initial adrenaline spike now normalizing." "They're monitoring me," Tae-Won realized. He glanced upward, looking for cameras but seeing nothing obvious. The entire environment was likely rigged with surveillance. Chief Researcher Do-hyun, "The human appears to be adapting more quickly than expected," another voice stated. It identified and avoided the Alpha Drake immediately. "Preliminary survival. Behaviors only," came a dismissive reply. "Wait until nightfall when the thermal hunters emerge. No previous subject has survived first contact with the nocturnal variants." Tae-Won frowned. "Nocturnal variants. Great." He picked up his pace, heading toward the lake he'd spotted. Water was essential, and open ground would give him better visibility against predators. Along the way, he collected sturdy branches for potential weapons and gathered what looked like fibrous vines that might serve as cordage. Upon reaching the lakeshore, Tae-Won crouched and tested the water. It appeared clean, with small fish-like creatures darting beneath the surface. He took a small sip, ready to spit it out if it tasted wrong. It was slightly sweet, but seemed safe enough. While refilling his makeshift container, a large curved piece of bark, he noticed something in the water. Large ripples moving against the current, heading toward shore. Toward him. Tae-Won backed away slowly as a serpentine form broke the surface. This dragon was different from the forest one, sleeker, with fins running down its spine and webbed claws, its eyes fixed on him with frightening intelligence. They have different types, he realized. Different adaptations for different environments. The water dragon lunged forward with shocking speed. Tae-Won barely had time to dive to the side, rolling away as massive jaws snapped shut where he'd been standing. The creature roared in frustration, a sound so loud it seemed to vibrate the very air. In one fluid motion, Tae-Won grabbed his knife from his boot and held it ready. The dragon circled, its long body coiling as it prepared for another strike. The human has drawn a concealed weapon, one of the Nul observers noted, surprise evident in the translated voice. How is this missed in processing? Irrelevant, came Do Hyun's cold response. A simple blade will not save it from the drakes. The water dragon lunged again. This time, instead of dodging, Taewon stepped into the attack, ducking under the creature's head and dragging his knife along its underbelly as it passed. The blade barely penetrated the armored scales, but the dragon shrieked and thrashed in pain. Taking advantage of the creature's confusion, Taewon sprinted back toward the tree line. He needed cover, time to think and prepare. Remarkable, murmured one of the watching Nul. It wounded the aquatic variant. A minor injury, Do Hyun dismissed. The human merely delays the inevitable. As Taewon reached the forest edge, he looked back to see the water dragon retreating, leaving a faint trail of bluish blood in the water. It would be back, he knew, and possibly angry. Night was approaching. Taewon could see the artificial sky darkening above the biodome. According to the Nul, the nocturnal variants would emerge soon. He needed shelter, and fast. You want a show? Taewon said aloud, knowing the Nul were listening. I'll give you one they'll never forget. As darkness fell across the arena, Taewon began gathering materials for his first night's survival. The Nul watched with growing interest as their human subject showed no signs of the panic they had expected. Instead, he worked methodically, eyes alert, movements precise, every inch the predator they had failed to recognize. I'll help you expand. Part 3. Survival instincts into a 900-word script with simple language, natural tone, and human-centric content that's engaging throughout. Let me search for any context that might help me understand what specific survival instincts you're focusing on. Let me search your Google Drive to see if I can find previous parts of this content to ensure consistency. I'll create an expanded version of Part 3. Survival instincts that's engaging, uses simple language, and maintains a natural human tone while being appropriate for YouTube. Here's a 900-word expansion. Part 3. Survival instincts. Have you ever wondered why you jump at sudden loud noises? Or why you can't help but look when someone points to the sky? These aren't random behaviors, they're survival instincts hardwired into our brains from thousands of years ago. Let's talk about these ancient instincts that still control much of what we do today. Our ancestors faced dangers we can barely imagine. Predators lurking in tall grass, rival tribes competing for resources, and harsh environments with little shelter. The ones who survived passed down their traits to us. Think about the last time you walked alone at night. Remember that weird feeling that someone might be watching you? That's your ancient brain doing its job, scanning for threats. Our ancestors who didn't have this awareness didn't last long enough to become anyone's ancestors. Our brains developed a neat trick. They react to potential danger before we consciously realize it. That's why you might find yourself backing away from a steep drop before you even think about it. Your body knows the danger before your mind catches up. The fight-or-flight response is probably the most famous survival instinct. When faced with danger, our bodies flood with adrenaline. Our hearts beat faster and blood rushes to our muscles. In prehistoric times, this gave us the burst of energy needed to either fight a threat or run away from it. Even today, this response kicks in during stressful situations. Ever notice how your heart races before a big presentation? Your body can't tell the difference between a hungry bear and a room full of people staring at you. It prepares the same way. But our survival instincts aren't just about avoiding danger. They also help us find what we need. Food cravings are a perfect example. Ever wondered why it's so hard to resist sugary or fatty foods? Our ancestors lived in environments where calories were scarce. Those who craved high-energy foods had a better chance of surviving tough times. Now we live in a world where food is everywhere, but our brains still light up at the sight of a chocolate cake like it's a rare treasure. Water is another basic need controlled by powerful instincts. The feeling of thirst becomes impossible to ignore because dehydration can kill you faster than hunger. Our ancestors who followed water sources survived. That's why the sound of flowing water feels so naturally calming to us. It signaled safety to our ancestors. Social instincts might be the most interesting of all. Humans survived by working together. Those who formed strong bonds with others had help hunting, protection from predators, and support raising children. That's why rejection hurt so much. In our ancient past, being cast out from the group was practically a death sentence. The pain of loneliness isn't just emotional. It's one of our oldest survival warnings telling us to reconnect. We're also naturally drawn to faces. Babies can recognize human faces almost immediately after birth. This instinct helped us quickly identify friend from foe and read expressions for signs of threat or cooperation. Have you noticed how easily we form us versus them thinking? This tribal mentality protected our ancestors. Those who trusted their own group and remained cautious of outsiders were more likely to survive. Today we still carry this instinct, which explains everything from sports team rivalries to deeper social divisions. Sleep is another survival behavior that's often overlooked. The drive to sleep isn't laziness. It's an essential recovery process. Our ancestors who rested properly could think more clearly, react faster, and stay healthier. That's why sleep deprivation feels so terrible. Your body is sending urgent signals that a basic survival need isn't being met. Weather instincts are fascinating too. That feeling that makes you want to huddle inside during a storm or seek shade on a scorching day. These protective responses kept our ancestors alive through harsh conditions. Here's something wild to think about. Many of our fears make no sense in modern life, but were perfectly reasonable for our ancestors. Fear of snakes, spiders, or heights. These protected our ancestors from real dangers. Even if you've never seen a venomous snake, your brain is pre-programmed to react with caution. Perhaps the most powerful survival instinct is the will to live itself. The human spirit's determination to keep going despite incredible odds has helped people survive situations that seem impossible. This persistence, this refusal to give up, might be the most remarkable survival trait we possess. So next time your stomach growls at the smell of food cooking, or you jump at an unexpected noise, or you feel drawn to join a group of friendly people, remember you're experiencing the echo of ancient survival programming that helped your ancestors live long enough to eventually lead to you. These instincts shaped us, protected us, and still guide us through life today, even if we rarely stop to notice them. I'll expand Part 4, Understanding the Predator, into a 900-word engaging script with simple language and a natural tone. Let me search for any related content to maintain consistency with your series. Here's a 900-word expansion of Part 4, Understanding the Predator, that's engaging, human-centric, and suitable for YouTube. Part 4, Understanding the Predator. Ever notice how we're drawn to shows about sharks, lions, and other top predators? There's something that fascinates us about these powerful creatures. Maybe it's because deep down, we know that understanding predators once meant the difference between life and death for our ancestors. Think about it. For most of human history, we weren't at the top of the food chain. Our ancestors had to constantly look over their shoulders, wondering if they were being watched by hungry eyes. This awareness shaped how we think and act even today. When our early relatives wandered the plains and forests, they learned to spot signs of danger. Broken twigs, unusual silence, or the faint smell of a large animal could send alarm bells ringing. Those who paid attention to these warnings lived to pass on their genes. Those who didn't? Well, they became someone's dinner. The most successful predators share certain traits. They're patient, watching, and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. They conserve energy, knowing when to chase and when to rest. And they're incredibly adaptable, changing their strategies based on their prey's behavior. Our ancestors studied these patterns closely. By understanding how predators think and act, they gained a crucial advantage. They could predict what might happen next. This wasn't just interesting information, it was survival knowledge passed down through generations. Take the way predators target the vulnerable. Lions don't usually go after the strongest buffalo in the herd. They look for the young, the old, or the injured, those who can't keep up. Our ancestors noticed this pattern and made sure to protect the most vulnerable members of their groups. keeping children and elders in the safest positions when traveling. We learned from watching predators hunt in packs too. Wolves and lions coordinate their attacks, with some members driving prey toward others waiting in ambush. This taught our ancestors the power of teamwork. A single human might not match a predator's strength, but a coordinated group stood a fighting chance. There's an interesting twist to this story, though. At some point, our ancestors made an incredible leap. They began to think like predators themselves. Instead of just avoiding being eaten, they started becoming hunters. Early humans studied the hunting techniques of other predators and adapted them. We watched how wolves tracked prey by scent and learned to follow tracks. We observed how big cats used stealth and patience, then applied those lessons to our own hunting. This shift changed everything. By thinking like predators, we developed new skills and tools. We learned to plan ahead, to set traps, and to work together in sophisticated ways. These abilities eventually helped us become the dominant species on the planet. But here's something worth thinking about. We didn't just learn from predators. We formed partnerships with them. The story of humans and dogs begins with wolves. Some theories suggest that early humans and wolves began hunting together, each bringing different strengths to the partnership. Wolves had better senses and speed. Humans had planning abilities and weapons. Over thousands of years, this relationship evolved. Those wolves that could work best with humans received food and protection, gradually becoming the dogs we know today. This might be the first example of humans turning a potential threat into an ally. Understanding predators changed how we built our communities too. Early settlements were designed with predators in mind. Fire kept animals at bay, while shelters protected people as they slept. Even today, the layout of many villages in places where large predators live reflects this ancient concern. The most fascinating part of this story might be how deeply predator awareness is wired into our brains. Have you ever woken up suddenly, in the night, certain you heard something? Or felt a chill run down your spine when walking alone in the dark? These reactions come from a time when night brought real dangers. Studies show that humans can detect snake shapes faster than other objects in pictures. We're born with a heightened awareness of creatures that threatened our ancestors. This isn't learned, it's inherited from those who survived because they noticed the slithering shape in the grass just in time. We still carry these instincts in our modern world. The jump scare in horror movies works because it triggers this ancient alarm system. The unease we feel in dark, unfamiliar places comes from a time when such feelings kept our ancestors alive. By understanding the predator, our species didn't just survive, we thrived. We turned the tables, moving from prey to becoming the most successful predators on Earth. This shift shaped our evolution, our societies, and even how our brains work. So next time you find yourself fascinated by a nature documentary about lions, hunting, or startled by an unexpected noise in the night, remember, you're experiencing the echo of our long relationship with predators, a relationship that made us who we are today. I'll expand Part 5, The New Order, into a 900-word engaging script with simple language and a natural tone. Let me check for any related content to maintain consistency with your series. Here's a 900-word expansion of Part 5, The New Order, that's engaging, human-centric, and suitable for YouTube. Part 5, The New Order. Something amazing happened around 12,000 years ago that completely changed how humans lived. For hundreds of thousands of years before that, our ancestors wandered from place to place, following herds of animals and gathering whatever plants they could find. Then suddenly, in the grand timeline of human existence, everything changed. This change was so huge that scientists call it the agricultural revolution, but I like to think of it as the new order, a complete reshuffling of how humans organize their lives. Imagine waking up one morning and deciding you're tired of chasing your food. Instead, you're going to make your food come to you. That's basically what our ancestors did. They noticed that seeds from the plants they gathered would grow into new plants. They figured out that certain animals could be tamed rather than hunted. This wasn't some overnight revelation. It probably happened slowly, with small experiments over many generations. Maybe someone noticed wild grains growing thicker where they had spilled some seeds the previous season. Perhaps a hunter brought home a wolf pup that grew up to help with hunting rather than being hunted itself. These small discoveries snowballed into the biggest lifestyle change humans had ever experienced. Instead of roaming, people started staying in one place. They built permanent homes near their fields and herds. For the first time in human history, we put down roots, literally and figuratively. The benefits must have seemed incredible at first. Having a stable food supply meant you didn't have to worry about going hungry if the hunt went badly. You could store grain for the winter. You could raise animals for meat, milk, and materials, without having to track them across vast distances. But here's the interesting part. Life actually got harder in many ways. Farming was, and still is, backbreaking work. Studies of ancient skeletons show that early farmers were often less healthy than their hunter-gatherer ancestors. They were shorter, had more dental problems, and showed more signs of malnutrition and disease. So why did people stick with it? One reason was probably population. Once people settled down, they started having more children. Hunter-gatherer women typically spaced their children about 4 years apart because they couldn't carry more than one young child while moving from place to place. But settled farmers could have children more frequently, leading to larger families. More people meant more mouths to feed, which required more farming, which supported more people. A cycle that pushed us deeper into this new way of life, even with its hardships. The new order changed more than just how we got our food. It completely transformed human society. For the first time, people could own land. Think about it. How could a nomadic hunter claim to own a piece of the forest? But a farmer who cleared a field, planted it, and tended crops had a strong reason to claim that land as their own. This idea of ownership led to something new: wealth inequality. Hunter-gatherer groups generally shared what they had. If someone made a big kill, everyone ate well. But farmers could store their surplus harvests. Some families managed to accumulate more than others, creating the first real differences in wealth among humans. With surpluses came another major change: specialization. Not everyone needed to farm anymore. Some people could become pottery makers, toolsmiths, weavers, or builders. Others became religious leaders or rulers. Complex societies began to form, with different roles for different people. These early settlements grew into villages, then towns, then cities. The first governments appeared to manage these increasingly complex communities. Written language developed, partly to keep track of who owned what. The very first writings we've found aren't poetry or stories. They're inventories and tax records. The switch to farming also changed our relationship with the natural world. Instead of adapting to nature, we started adapting nature to us. We cleared forests for fields. We diverted water for irrigation. We selected plants and animals with traits we wanted, slowly changing them through breeding programs. The wheat, corn, and rice we eat today look nothing like their wild ancestors. Our health changed too. Living close to animals brought new diseases. Living in crowded settlements allowed illnesses to spread more easily. But over generations, we developed some immunity to these new threats. The most profound change might have been in how we think. Hunter-gatherers lived mostly in the present, concerned with immediate needs. Farmers had to think about the future, next season's crops, storing food for winter, planning for years ahead. This long-term thinking eventually gave rise to complex civilizations, planning projects that would take generations to complete. So when you sit down for dinner tonight, you're experiencing the results of that ancient new order. Whether your meal includes bread, rice, milk, or meat, you're eating foods that humans deliberately shaped over thousands of years. The way we live today, in permanent homes, specialized jobs, complex societies, all goes back to that pivotal shift when our ancestors decided to stop following food and start making it come to them instead.